Hey, this is Brando from Appetite for Distortion, and you are listening to the Thunder Underground.
Hey, this is Dizzy Reed from GNR and Hookers and Below, and you're listening to the Thunder Underground.
Welcome to episode 283 of the Thunder Underground podcast. Trent and Jason here. This week we've got a good one. We've got Brando from Appetite for Distortion on here. Very cool Guns N' Roses centric interview. You know, we talk about some other stuff, but most of it's about Guns N' Roses because that's what his podcast is about.
Right.
So that's very cool. We're going to check that out and play some music. But before we do that, we got to let you know our sponsors. Hella Hot Sauce is a hot sauce company based out of the San Francisco Bay Area in California. They make small batch artisan hot sauces. You can check out their entire selection of hot sauce and merchandise and everything at hellahotsauce.com.
When you hear small batch artisan, those are those buzzwords. It makes you just want to buy shit.
Yeah. It sounds a little hipsterish, but at the same time, I know these guys aren't that.
And it's truth.
And even if they're making stuff in small batches, we know it's good because
we've had it.
Yeah, they sent us some Florida Frank's Florida Heat. Episode 261, Frank was on our podcast and talked about how that all came together. And it's an excellent sauce. It's got a lot of flavor and a ton of heat. So they've also got one with Ghoul from it's called Brain Jerk from Ghoul, who has also been on this podcast.
Right.
And if you're in the California area, you can buy it in stores out there on the West Coast. But if you're anywhere else in the country or world, hellahotsauce.com is where you need to go. Follow them on Facebook as well and tell them we sent you. Sunset Tattoo is a tattoo shop located right here in Tulsa at 3146 East 15th. They're right in the heart of Midtown. Jake and his crew have over 25 years of experience. Their tattoos are done good and proper, and they're state licensed and they're mother approved. If you shoot them a message or give them a call, you can set up a time to get in there, talk about what work you need to have done. These guys are the ones to do it for you, because if you get on Facebook or Instagram, you can see all their work that they've done. Ton of pictures, ton of great stuff. Sunset Tattoo Tulsa on Instagram. Same thing on Facebook. So give them a follow and tell them we sent you. All right, MedFarm is a dispensary located in Broken Arrow, Oklahoma. 24683 East Highway 51. They're right off the highway. You can't miss them. They've got a huge selection. You can go in there and check it out, or you can call ahead or text ahead and go right through the drive-thru, which is a very cool benefit to going to MedFarm because a lot of dispensaries don't have drive-thrus. If you follow them on Facebook, MedFarm PHARM, they're always running specials. One of their specials is always running is if you mention Thunder Underground, they'll give you 10% off your order. Also follow them on Instagram at MedFarmOK, and their website's medfarmok.com. And most importantly, 30% of their profits are going to build no-kill animal shelters. So nearly a third of what they're selling is going to help support the animals. So get out there and help make a difference. Like that, I made it like a thing, help make a difference.
I dig that.
That's not their slogan, but that's a slogan I just added.
I love it.
All right. They actually have commercials I've seen late at night a couple times. And they don't say cannabis with the cause on that, and I think it's probably because they can't say cannabis.
Right.
They say, like, their tagline on that's like it's only natural.
I see.
So anyway, we can say cannabis here.
Yeah, because fuck it, we do what we want.
That's right. But yeah, so check out MedFarm and tell them we sent you. Finally, DEB Concerts is a promoter right here in Tulsa that has brought a plethora of amazing music to downtown Tulsa. Saxon, Last in Line, Buck Cherry, Striper, LA Guns, Dokken, Warrant, Lita Ford. You know, there's a long-ass list. I'm drawing a blank. But coming up on October 23rd, LA Guns will make their way back. They were on this podcast when they came through last time, Tracy Guns and Phil Lewis, and that was a very cool episode. So check that one out if you have not. You can follow them on Facebook at DEB Concerts, Twitter at DEB Concerts, and of course their website is debconcerts.com for ticket info and up-to-date info on any of the shows that got postponed, like the New Metal Revival and the Poison, Tom Kiefer, Sebastian Bach show as well. So be on there to find out all that info, and of course we'll bring it to you as soon as we know as well. All right, before we get into this interview, we're going to play some music. You ready for this one?
I think so.
This is probably the 5th time maybe we played this band. I don't know.
Yeah, we love them.
Yeah. And every time they have a new single, we're more than happy to play it because Torpedo Head is an amazing band. Highly underrated in my opinion because more people in this world need to know who they are.
Exactly.
But just let's get into it right now and check out this song. It's called Shot on Mars. Shot on Mars, brand new single from Torpedo Head. We actually had on Space Brain here a few months ago during our big April-May run of like doing 2 or 3 interviews every week.
All the quarantine shows.
Yeah. We finally made that one happen. We've been talking about it forever. And like I said, we played several other songs. But this brand new one's great. Did you dig it?
Oh man, loved it.
Can't go wrong with Torpedo Head. Melodic for days.
Yeah.
It's got all the elements of punk, sleaze, glam, hard rock, whatever you want. These guys kind of do it. They fit into that punk and roll moniker very well. So check out all their music across the board. You will not be disappointed if you dug that song, I promise.
Right.
Getting into the subject at hand, Brando hosts a podcast called Appetite for Distortion. It's been around almost as long as ours, a little bit shorter. He's in I think the 230s right now, maybe. So a little under 5 years, I think. But this podcast, like he talks about how he does it off the 6 degrees of separation from Guns N' Roses, because you can't just, I mean, he has guests every week, but you're going to run out of guests pretty quick.
Right.
If you can't get certain people. He's also, he has on people like the artists that did a lot of the posters, on the last tour. Doug Goldstein, Alan Niven,
Right.
people like that are part of management with Guns N' Roses. And of course, guys from the band like Matt Sorum, Dizzy Reed, Gilby Clark, Frank Furr, have all been on. Tracy and Roberta have both been on. And that episode with Roberta was really good. They talked about a lot of the Black Lives Matter stuff and got pretty serious on that one. But yeah, I mean, he has guests like recently he had on Carla Harvey from Butcher Babies, and it was just because Guns N' Roses is one of her favorite bands. Right. So, that's kind of the separation thing. Or even had on CM Punk, and CM Punk told a story about, I can't remember, I listened to it, but I can't remember what he was, but it's something to do with an experience he had with seeing Guns N' Roses. And, so, I mean, it's someone like me that's a kind of a geek about it. It's like, we've always talked about Metal Up Your Podcast with Metallica.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Kind of along the same lines, but a little bit different because he's more focused on interviews than Metal Up Your Podcast is.
I see.
But he does a lot of the same kind of stuff where he'll delve into stuff here and there.
Yeah.
And I think I actually discovered him whenever I was looking up. I did a search for Junkyard interviews back before we did our Junkyard interview about 2 years ago.
I see.
And I had looked for Guns N' Roses podcast before that, and for some reason didn't find it. And then when I did that search, I came across David Roach was on this podcast.
Oh, okay.
And so kind of since then, I've been listening to it, so.
Well, and that's another thing, Junkyard, what great dudes.
Yeah.
Always good to have them on the podcast.
And we just had on
exactly
Patrick Muzingo
Yep.
back in May as well. And that was really cool to have him back. And that's another thing related to Guns N' Roses is that Slash and Axl both famously wore Junkyard shirts on stage at different points way back in the day. Which it's kind of a bummer that didn't help propel Junkyard to another level. Even though it should have, because Junkyard is amazing.
They are.
I guess quit talking, just jump into this. Brando is a DJ, and he's also a behind-the-scenes guy in New York City. And he's been doing this for a long-ass time, so listen to his podcast because he sounds like he knows what he's doing, unlike me. But anyway, let's get into this. Here's Brando, the host of Appetite for Distortion.
How it seems to be, because I think I've said, maybe you've heard me say, it wasn't my initial idea to do a Guns N' Roses podcast. It was my friend Ian who I started it with. I wasn't really in the podcast game, just doing my radio, terrestrial radio thing, and it was right before the reunion, and there was none. And since then, people have told me they searched for one, they couldn't believe that there weren't more of them. Like you have, I'm a huge Simpsons fan. And there are so many Simpsons podcasts, out there, and there just aren't. So I don't know. I guess it's good for me. I've seen a couple pop up that are not English speaking. GNR Central doesn't do it anymore. Guns and Radio, they just break down like a song, an episode, so it's like completely different than what I do. So it's been cool. So I'm glad. Yeah, it's something. And people say they find me through a random guest, and honestly, I think that's probably the best way to do it.
Yeah.
How long have you been doing yours?
This is started in May of 2015, so almost 5.5 years.
Okay, so longer than me. Mine was just over 4 years.
Okay.
So I mean, it's hard. It's just there's so many podcasts out there, and it's in this. So however you find me, it's fucking awesome. So thanks, and that's why in addition to. Because this is just another way. You found me, and hopefully some of your audience finds me, and vice versa.
I was kind of curious what your background in radio is.
Sure. Where are you from, by the way?
Oklahoma.
Okay. So I'm from New York. I don't know if you could tell by my accent, or at least my Jersey.
Yeah.
So I went to college on Long Island for broadcast journalism. I kind of just wanted to be like a sportscaster, I think, or a sports writer. And then when I went to, I don't know if you know it, Hofstra University, now they have like the number one radio program in, like, literally the number one radio program in the country, or at least, they were in the, I don't know, prior to last year, maybe, who knows.
Wow.
So there I just kind of got bit by the radio bug, and I had like an on-air show there, and I moved to Cape Cod to get, because I wanted to be on air, essentially. So I had moved to Cape Cod, Massachusetts for a couple years to get my start there at Pixie 103, Cape Cod's rock. Just those typical DJs that talk between songs.
Yeah.
That say stuff. Or come to the local car sale this weekend and pick up some stickers. Like that kind of crap.
Yeah.
But getting full time on air and radio it's hard. It's kind of like being in a band in a way. Like you have to wait for a slot to open up, or like a new band to form, or and I knew I wasn't going to stay in Cape Cod because there's 300 markets in the country. Like New York's number one, or LA is number two, or they flip flop by going by population. So Cape Cod, it's a summer vacation place, so that would toggle around 200. So I'm not going to, I don't know. I guess I always, it's so funny. Like when I guess I'm asked questions, I'm like, where do I start? Because whatever. I obviously have conversations with myself in my head. So I mean, like, that was just part of my adventure. And I said, like, I want to be full time in radio by the time I'm 28, because I moved away from Long Island to Cape Cod when I was like 23. And just like when right before then, I had worked part time in Poughkeepsie, New York, which is like an hour above New York City, for a classic rock station there. Primarily just like part time, or fill-ins, for middays and stuff. And a lot of stations, like where I work now at iHeart, there's a cluster. There's a few stations in that building. So there was like a country station I did some on-air work for, an adult contemporary they did some on-air work for. And on-air work doesn't pay a lot, and there's not a lot to go by. So I would have, which I still do, I have like a part-time non-radio job to supplement myself. But I would always do like board op work, working radio boards or editing, or whatever behind the scenes radio job I could get as well. So that led me to, I had like at one point in New York, I had like 4 part-time radio jobs.
Wow.
And then I'm like, I'll try to, it's already too late with this long story, but I ended up going out east on Long Island, finally getting full time at this station on air and like producing morning shows and stuff. And that company was buying properties in Florida, and they were going to move me down to Florida. So actually I was up here making a rock station in West Palm Beach, even though I never moved down there or anything. I was just, radio could be done anywhere, obviously, with podcasting. So that company ended up fucking me over. They paid me horrendously anyway, which ended up working out for me in the long run, because there wasn't a good company, and there was really no room. It was all smoke and mirrors. There really wasn't any real room to grow. But it was like, for me, it was like all resume and life lessons and all that. So after that, I ended up getting a part-time job at the big Long Island station, like I think where Dee Snider used to be, where his House of Hair started, WBAB. So that felt good, just because like their morning show guy reached out to me and wanting me to be a part of that. And during that time, I connected with a radio acquaintance that had, if you do have any work at iHeart, which is located here in Tribeca. Well, I'm in Queens right now, but Tribeca, which is, I don't know, it's in Freedom Tower-ish, that part of New York City. So there was a job available that was all like behind the scenes stuff, like editing and working in studios and that stuff, nothing on air. But I was, happy to take it. It's in New York City. It's in the same building as the number one stations in the country. So I'm like, yeah, we just get my foot in. So I've been doing that for 5 years, but and then the podcast just came about totally by accident. My friend Ian, who I worked with, I told you I had 4 part-time jobs at once, the radio jobs. One was for Sirius XM for the Catholic channel. I'm Jewish, but it was like a friend of. I mean, I don't care. Radio to me, radio is radio. But it was a friend of mine I went to college with. The whole Sirius story is another long story. So I ended up. I knew that kid Ian from Sirius, and he had been working on a podcast with like military personnel. There's a lot of military special ops podcasts out there, and he found himself into falling into that. And he was making money. He's like, we should do a Guns N' Roses podcast. Why? That sounds so stupid because they're my favorite band. But who wants to listen to that? How long could we do that for? But I don't know. It seemed like a fun thing to do. And he's like, it's all about getting guests. And then I think maybe like our 10th episode. I mean, because we had maybe a couple authors on before, some cool stuff. Like Stevie Rochelle from Metal Sludge, some cool stuff that it's not like I'm just interviewing my friends, or just Ian and I talking to each other about Guns N' Roses. And then by episode 10, we got Charlie Benanti. So I'm like, oh, this is it. Anthrax. And it kind of gets snowballed. I think 20 was Dave Kushner from Velvet Revolver. And I'm like, okay, and that's when it was also the first time I saw that we were picked up by a news outlet, which was Alternative Nation. And I'm like, okay, this seems like it's just not like we're talking to a tin can. Like this could become something. So I had been doing that on the side of all my radio stuff, recording it at first at the station on Long Island, and now I'm doing it, or I was doing it in the city. And it's been cool because it was just all on my own, and I just through networking with people that I work with. This guy I work with at iHeart, he's like a hiring kind of placement manager or whatever. In addition to like he produces, do you know Elvis Duran? I don't know if you've ever heard that name.
Yeah.
So he's on that show and he produces that show, but he also does job placement in iHeart. So he's like, why isn't your podcast? Because it was just on SoundCloud or iTunes and just the big, the typical platforms. And I'm like, why would it be on the iHeart app? I'm not a radio station. I'm not a celebrity that like Will Ferrell gets his own podcast. He's like, no, but he's like, but you work here and we want to find, in-house, in-house products, things like that. I'm like, okay. So he introduced me to somebody else, and I actually thought I was going to have to like sell him on it, but he said, no, I listened to the first episode. It's good. And they pay for like my Spreaker space. So then it's all so that's what is on iHeart. I learned though, it's a gray area that it's not an iHeart produced podcast where it's like, I can say this is an iHeart podcast. It's like, right. I don't even know how to explain it. It's like I happen to work there. It is supported by. It's why I sometimes get some big name guests. There are ones I get on my own big name guests just by reaching out, like how you probably get. But because one of the things I do for iHeart, they're called radio tours. So I don't know if you listen to morning radio, or I'm sure you have in your life, but they'll have like celebrities on or an author or someone to interview in the morning. And morning radio, it's how long do they really talk at a time? Yeah. So they're meant for morning radio, and within a 2-hour time period, just like 9 a.m. and 11 a.m., our job is to schedule our bank of stations or whoever wants these guests, so the guest is talking to 15 or 20 stations, and it's up to us to record the audio and connect the guest, whether they're in studio or if it's over the phone. Now we're doing it on Zoom. Hey, first up, we're going to go to Detroit. You got to talk to so-and-so, and it's pre-taped. All right. Then after like 7 minutes or 10 minutes, however that was worked out, okay, now we're going to go to Connecticut, and you'll be talking with so-and-so. Okay, you have 10 minutes with with Matt Sorum or something like that. So we put those on, and I sometimes am the tour person running it. But slowly but surely, it might have been Jim Brewer, which was and pardon me, I'm watching the third period of the Islanders, if you don't mind.
No.
I think Jim Brewer might have been the first one, and I'm like, because these guests coming in, and I'm like, how do I not say anything? So I can say to my boss, and I had a podcast. I said, if it's appropriate, if there's room, for me, if I'm allowed to, jump on this tour with my podcast. And it's from since then, yeah. I mean, not always, because there are sometimes this guest is so like Charlotte Flair. I wanted to interview when she, I think they were just phoners, but it's like everybody, all of our stations, like it was like overloaded with requests to interview her. And it's as my job, obviously I'm not going to put my own needs above my job. Like, so I get it, but sometimes it works out, whether it's like the Dave Mustaines that I've had, or what's her Pollyanna McIntosh from The Walking Dead. Just so that's part of my job, and then I also work on Keith Sweat's show. You know Keith Sweat,
Yeah.
the '80s, '90s R&B singer.
Yeah, actually saw him live a few years ago.
Nice.
Yeah.
So I work on his show nightly. Actually, it's just an automated show that plays R&B and R&B music, and with his voice tracks in between and stuff. So, and I've been doing the podcast around that. So that's my long-winded, because I've had a very weird career, and I feel like I've left out a lot of stuff. So that's why I always kind of get. You're laughing. I'm glad I'm getting this out now. That's why the few interviews that I've been asked to do, I always get, but as I'm talking on it, there's always that part where you're the guest. Am I talking too much than you're supposed to? And it's also, I don't know. It's just weird. Like it's like a loaded question. It's like, how do you get into radio? What do you do?
Yeah.
Okay. How do I say this? So,
yeah.
To summarize, I work for Premier Radio Networks now, and which is under iHeart, and it's my title is technical producer. So it's just audio editing. I produce Keith Sweat show now, which inputting commercials or recording stuff like that. But the only on-air thing that I do right now is this. But what's really cool that worked out, it's I guess the part is a little missing, which is cool. So the number one classic rock station, I think it is in the country, or it's still New York City, is Q1043. That's where Eddie Trunk, that's kind of like his home base is.
Okay.
He works with Sirius, but like we broadcast his show, and he doesn't come in. He has like a mailbox in the studio, but he just doesn't come in ever. So anyway, so Q1043, and I'm too young to be on that. I'm 30. I'm going to be 37 in a month. I'm too young, and I've always been too young for every classic rock station that I've been on. But I've, kind of always made it my own, I guess. I don't act like a child, although I always try not to, but I don't also act like I'm 40 or 50. So I never really applied there, but I wanted to meet the program director just so he knew who I was. And here, long story short, I've filled in, and I'm going to be continuing to fill in for their morning show producer at times. It's weird because right now he's the only one allowed in the building for our because the hosts are at home, so he obviously has to run it by going in. So I don't know what's going to if I was just asked if we need you to come in, is it okay if you come in because his wife is pregnant? I'm like,
wow.
You figure that out. So anyway, that guy really likes, the program director really likes me, and the morning show host, the main morning show host, really likes me. His name is Jim Kerr. He's in the Radio Hall of Fame. Like when I was there, it was over the phone, but he interviewed Mick Jagger for the 10th time.
Wow.
So when I produce, he talks about, he's like, tell me about your podcast. We talk about Guns N' Roses in the podcast on the air. And that program director is like, how come your podcast isn't on Q1043's website? I don't know. It's not he's like, all right, let's put it there. It's good stuff. I'm like, okay. So it's now on New York Classic Rock's website, the podcast section, which is cool. And Alternative Nation has helped me out. I'm sure they picked up some of your interviews over the years.
Yeah.
This year Brett's having fucking technical difficulties, so that's why he's not really doing any articles. He's having something where Google doesn't pick it up.
Okay.
I don't know. I'm thinking he's clickbaited himself to death and he has to fix it out.
Yeah.
But I'm on their website also, so it's been cool that people who find me, like yourself, like what I do, because I promise you, Trent, I think every episode I do, I don't know how you are, sucks. I listen to it back. I'm like, all right, it wasn't that bad. But until then, you're a Simpsons guy. I don't know if you're a South Park guy, but they did that 6 Days to Air documentary.
Yeah.
Where I think it was Trey Parker that said I think every episode is terrible, and he's eating McDonald's to deal with it. I'm like, all right, is someone as brilliant as him? But so anyway, yeah, that they're.
But no, I feel that same way too. I'll be like, man, that wasn't that good. Then when I put it together, I'm like, okay, that was good. It was just me on my end thinking the questions weren't that great or something. But
Yeah, or sometimes I want to be the old school broadcaster that just doesn't flub at all and everything is so smoothly, and that's not me. I've had to come to terms with that before podcasting when it was, like I said, just DJ, when you're talking for 30 seconds or a minute and like every mistake you make you have to just go with your delivery and own it. And just so it's, I feel like I've worked myself up to doing this podcast through all the radio battles, some of which I've shared with you to do this. So this was a happy accident because it's what's keeping me motivated.
Well, I know sometimes you mention on the podcast that you kind of go off the 6 degrees of separation from Guns N' Roses for your guests. Like early on, like when you had someone like Charlie Benante, was that a stretch, or was that not really the idea at that point because that was still early?
And not at that point, because the reason why he came on was because my buddy. It's funny because I don't listen to podcasts. I just don't. I mean, I have listened to Joe Rogan. I have listened to maybe random clips or episodes of other ones. But for me, I'm in the car. I'm listening to like my own music. I'm like trapped in nostalgia. If I'm at home, I'm watching like a shitty 80s horror movie, or something. It's just, I don't know. I guess because maybe working in radio, I'm tired of hearing myself talk, honestly.
Yeah.
But I don't know what else I would do. So with Charlie Benante, Ian listens to a lot of podcasts, and he heard Charlie on Inappropriate Earl. Maybe it might have been that podcast. And Charlie about like how big of a Guns N' Roses fan he is, and he was at the Axl DC concert. Or no, he wasn't there yet because I ended up seeing him there when I went. No, he was there. Okay, no, because I did a review of the Axl DC like early on. Yes, because so he went to go see AC/DC with Axl Rose, and you praised it. So I'm like, okay, he's a big name who, at least is a Guns N' Roses fan. But I just knew if I'm going forward, I mean, if I'm just talking Guns N' Roses, like I can't do it. These fans, like they just go back and forth on a forum all the time about who played what on Chinese Democracy and in what version, or is one person's version of events the same as another person's. It's just like I can do that, but I can't just do only that. So that's why I'm like, okay, whatever I can. Someone who listens to a lot of sports radio also, I like how some sports radio hosts do it where obviously the nucleus is sports. And if you're in New York, it's going to be, Yankees. It's going to be Jets. It's going to be all that. But you're also going to, you'll talk about the Lakers when it's important, or you'll talk about Tiger Woods and when it's important. Or you'll even, especially you'll talk about mental health, talk about domestic violence, when it relates. So it's not just when it relates to it, but it all comes back to that center of what sports are. So I kind of use what Guns N' Roses like that. I'm like, because I always liked that. That format of having a base, so it's not just you're listening to me, I am the nucleus, it's just whatever my opinions are on something. I mean, that's part of it, but I like, you're going to me for Guns N' Roses, but let's just see where that leads to. I don't know, it's kind of like how I look at The Simpsons. It's like I know what I'm going to get, but I don't know, it can go anywhere, So yeah, but that's obviously helped me because there are some episodes where I'm like, there's barely any GNR talk, and I try to do whatever I can to shoehorn it in, and I haven't gotten, too many complaints about that. Obviously some people prefer some episodes over others, but yeah.
Do you usually, like, if you have a guest where it's not really, like, say you just had Sully Erna, like, do you check beforehand if he's a fan, or do you just bring that up during the episode?
Both. I feel this time I made a mistake by asking permission because I feel like I wouldn't have done anything wrong. I said, do you mind if he asks? And he really obviously just wanted to focus on the event that happened last night. And I'm like, I'm going to play by the rules. I'm not going to ask him like, how did Download Festival go or with them last year or something. So I kind of just let that go. And I casually in the conversation mentioned, I've talked about depression with Alan Niven, or then I add my own GNR spin to it after the interview. But there are times where, like those short interviews I got to do, like with Harry Shearer, I mean, I'm sure maybe if he sees Appetite for Distortion on his list, he'd be like, oh, it's a Guns N' Roses podcast, but he may not be thinking that. So I will spring that up on him, but I always make sure I address what they need to be addressed at first. Right. But there are others like Tommy Stinson's peeps where they were really nice that, that obviously like they could tell that I wanted to talk about his new stuff, but they're like, just in the email that we're going to forward to him, make sure GNR is at like the last thing listed. It's not that he won't talk about GNR. It's that, we've been burned where, they don't talk about like his upcoming show and things like that. It's like he's got money to make. He's not like he's Axl Rose, with all this money. He still has to put out music and stuff. So that comes out. Or there are people who don't want to come on at all that I say I won't talk about Guns N' Roses, but you are connected. So just hearing you talk, it doesn't matter. Like Bumblefoot. He was actually my first radio interview ever when I was in Cape Cod, but he won't come on because it's a Guns N' Roses related podcast, and he obviously has some sort of crazy bitter feeling toward it. Wow. But so even though every interview he does, he's asked about it, it's always in every headline. But I think it's just like and I think it's why Duff, at least from his management, why they got canceled. It's hard to get some of these guests. So, or even Catherine Benzua, whatever, the photographer, she agreed to it. I was like back and forth with her for like a year, and then she's like, "I can't do it. I like what you do. If this was any other podcast, I do it because it's a Guns N' Roses podcast. I can't." I heard a fucking harp player from Prostitute off Chinese Democracy has a non-disclosure agreement, and she wanted to do it. Wow. So I mean, it's every guest. I'll tell you this. I'm like every week. I'm like I'm never going to get another guest again. No one's going to want to talk to me. Then stuff happens, and then every guest is its own challenge. Or sometimes it comes. Thankfully, there are ones that come easy, but it's different when you're talking just rock and whatever. I feel like sometimes I may scare people off, even though I'm not. I really build a show that's not meant to do that.
Right.
So it's been a challenge. But I've been doing it, I guess.
Outside of the obvious people like Duff or Slash or Axl, are there any guests that you really, really want to get that kind of seem out there that you haven't been able to get? Or
well, obviously, aside from the obvious, I mean, I want to get Sebastian Bach. I want to get I want to get Sebastian Bach. Who my mind went blank for a second. Who was the other one that I mean, obviously, there's ones like fucking Arnold Schwarzenegger, which would be amazing.
Yeah.
To talk to him about Guns N' Roses. But I mean, we can do this crazy wish list. But there are plenty of names. I really want to get Vicky Cornell, honestly, on. I think that would be great. Jacoby Shattuck, I want to get on. I've had Tobin from Papa Roach on, but no, I mean there are a lot. Even though I've had a lot, there's definitely Weird Al. I'd love to get Weird Al on. I'll tell you something though. Pauly Shore was a big deal to me, which sounds so silly, and Harry Shearer even, both of them. But Pauly Shore because that was a longer one. That one he even said in the interview. I could have said no, but it wasn't through my job. It was just through networking and finding out who his people were. And I don't know. I love Pauly Shore. So there's a lot. So that's what it keeps me going, knowing that just last week, or I can get Harry Shearer or some big names. So it's like, okay, this is still a thing. This isn't like I'm talking into a Facebook page of 5 Guns N' Roses fans and nobody listens. I mean, I'm not Joe Rogan. I mean, I don't know what kind of number. We don't have to talk numbers, but I don't feel like mine are very impressive. But it's what really gets me going is some of the names, and when my interviews get picked up, and especially getting translated into other languages and stuff, it's like the reach is there.
Yeah,
the reach is there, and it's like I'm talking about Guns N' Roses. I'm not talking about Newfound Glory, some band, and I like Newfound Glory, but it's like not some band that's like really doesn't really held to a specific time period. That's not everybody knows who they are.
Yeah, and it has like a global reach that's never ending, basically.
Yeah, that's. I think so. They're one of those bands, like the Beatles, like the Rolling Stones. Like it's just global. So it's I somehow fell into the right band to do a podcast about.
Right. I mean, speaking of that, like, where did it start for you as far as being a fan, or how did they become your favorite band? Like, how early on was that in your life?
By the way, this is maybe it's too late to ask. Is this the interview part of it, or is this just bullshitting?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I'm just
I had no idea.
And go with it. Sorry.
Wow, look how smooth you are. I had no idea. Wow.
Usually, if I tell people, okay, we're starting, it seems to be a little more cut. I mean, I don't know. If I just start talking and people start talking, it flows a little better, I think.
No, you're right. No, you caught me. I may start doing that. Yeah, I may even start doing it because I usually have like a little powwow before. You know, well, some people are. Maybe I'm different because I've done radio, but if I'm talking to what I've also done, and don't let me, because I forgot your question, but don't let me forget that I forgot your question. I've had, what's been very cool, what I've done since the beginning as well, is I've had fans on, just your general Guns N' Roses fan, but not really your general Guns N' Roses fan, that they have like a story. So it started with, I think this guy in Ireland, that, you know, he owns a guitar shop. He's obsessed with Izzy, and it got deep where, you know, he associates Appetite for Destruction with some family stuff at home, and like it's just like what the music stuff meant to him. So we got deep into that. I'm like, you know what, this is cool. This is where I want to go. Like, it's Guns N' Roses music is deep. Let's do that. And we spoke to this guy, Tomislav from Croatia. This guy called me saying that, you know, like whatever your Guns N' Roses story is, because that's how I look at it. Because obviously I'm not going to interview Slash and Axl, at least, you know, who know, not in my dreams, at least only in my dreams, rather. But you could still have a great story. So this guy Tomislav was telling me that he fought in the Yugoslavian war, and while he was in a Jeep driving over a minefield, trying not to die, he had Appetite for Destruction in his headphones, just blasting it. So it's like just to get him through. So the stories, I know, right? And not everyone has that level of a story, but it's been appreciated by listeners, you know, from the Netherlands I've had on, Australia. Recently, it's funny. I had no idea, being from New York, and it's only like 20 minutes away from me. There's a restaurant called Spaghetti Incident.
Really?
Yeah, and actually it was just messaged today on Instagram by another fan that there's the Spaghetti Incident in Bristol, UK. So I guess it's not a totally unique idea, but there is a Spaghetti Incident close to me in Queens, and another listener told me about that. That's why it's been great. Like, these listeners reach out to me wanting to share with me so I could share with the rest of the Guns N' Roses fans. So recently I had on the owner of Spaghetti Incident, this guy named Giovanni, and he's legit Italian, straight with the accent. And just getting his story about naming his restaurant, you know, when he moved to America, a Spaghetti Incident. And so it's just stories like that. And sometimes I will have even a fan co-host. I've had fans co-host interviews with Tommy Stinson. Who else? I mean, yeah, certain managers that I've had. It's been a bit. I think. I've had a few episodes, like definitely more than a handful, like what they've co-interviewed with me, because I feel like that's just a unique opportunity to give, I guess. And I think it was the first time. No, it was with Jeff Rouse from Loaded. Ray from the UK, I'll give a mention to if he listens to this, because he's just like I have dedicated fans, which are great.
Yeah.
And he doesn't say much because he's not, you know, I don't know, a trained broadcaster. You know, maybe he's not the most chatty guy, but his passion is there. So he's like kind of there as like my Ed McMahon, if you know that reference. Is just laughing, but he's like, I love the experience. So I try to give an experience too with this. So I know I completely went off. What was your question that led me to even think about this?
I was just asking how you got in.
How I got into Guns N' Roses.
How you got into Guns N' Roses, just the basic for your love for GNR.
Sure.
Yeah.
So, I mean, growing up, it's just ironic that the station that I kind of work for now, producing some of the morning show for Q1043, is kind of the station I grew up listening to. my dad would have me. I would listen to that in the car. My mom would be like, she would have a CBS FM, which was like an oldies doo-wop station on all the time, and which I love. I love that. But I rock somehow hit me harder when I was younger. But still, it took me a while to get into, I think, like bands, because when you're young, I was a huge Michael Jackson fan. I think the first cassette I got, which hopefully you'll laugh, which I still makes me does, is I got Green Day. Oh, it's not that part of it. I got Dookie. I got in my Hanukkah stocking. That's the part that's supposed to be funny. So yeah, my mom put it in my Hanukkah stocking, and that was my first cassette. But it was maybe middle school. I mean, I always would hear Guns N' Roses on the radio, and I'm like, I like this band. I whatever I've seen a video, I like this band. So I just remember asking my friend Mike, what album should I get of Guns N' Roses? I'm trying to think. I was probably maybe 14 or 15 at the time. What album should I get? He's like, all right, list the songs that you like. And I guess obviously most of them are going to be off Appetite. So that's where it started. But after that, I'm like, this is amazing. That's when I got The Illusions. That's when I got, I don't think I ever bought the Spaghetti Incidents, only because when you're younger, people made fun of that. Like, it's only a covers record. I dismissed it for so long. Not anymore. But, you buy Lies. I downloaded every song you could download. That was a big with me off like Napster and LimeWire. I got all the unreleased stuff, like Sentimental Movie, and like all these. That was the only band I really did that with. And I don't know where Chinese Democracy came from, why I became obsessed with it, like the rest of the fan base. But I started going to mygnrforum.com, which is still very much around and active, and that's where all the leaks started to happen. And locally, Eddie Trunk and Mike Piazza were involved in leaking and playing better for the first time on the radio, which they should not have. So there was this local feel to it a little bit. Then them adding Bumblefoot, who's another Brooklyn Jew, just like myself, to it. So I'm like, I'm never going to see Guns N' Roses ever. They were already broken up when I became like a diehard fan. But when they came back in 2002, I was dating a girl at the time that Guns N' Roses was her favorite band, and she got me into them more. So she like sat me down, like, let's watch Welcome to the Videos. We did. I'm like, this is great. First time I saw the Garden of Eden video. I'm like, this is so cool. This is like what I want in a rock star. As somebody who like fantasized about being a rock star, I have no musical talent. I've tried and failed, like at everyone. Like, you try to sing like Axl, you sound like a ferret being stepped on.
Right.
But as you're driving, am I the only one that just like, I imagine myself being like a front man and who my band would be and like what. So because I didn't like my own life, so I was trying to dream about another. Which I guess is the whole point of daydreaming, I guess. Yeah. So that really just fueled it. And then 2002 happened, and they announced this tour, and I'm like, this is the only time I'm ever going to see Axl Rose. And that's when I got to see Axl with Buckethead and that version. And they canceled the tour like a day later.
Wow.
That was, I think, and now it's officially come out because I've had Brain on a few times. That something like Ticketmaster pulled it. I think I need to ask former manager Doug Goldstein, more about that next time, because there was something about he booked the tour and Axl didn't know he booked it. So I don't know the full story behind that yet, but it seemed like you would never see Axl Rose again. I'm like, I saw this. He doesn't look like what he used to, like with his jerseys and his dreads or long braids or whatever. Yeah. But it still, I don't know. I still had the passion for it, and I loved, when Chinese Democracy came out. Actually, I still have it. The only vinyl I own is Chinese Democracy. It's, really? It's not even open. It's not even open. I'm not a vinyl guy. Oh, and actually, this is the bandana I bought at that concert.
Okay.
So I mean, I never really went to shows where I bought a ton of merch, and this was the only band that did it, and they just struck a chord. I guess pun intended or whatever. With me, and it's kind of been like that ever since. They've just been my band more than, for me. Even though Green Day was my first record or first cassette that I bought, they fell off for me. I'm not into them as much as I once was. I mean, I love Metallica, but it was they didn't have the diversity I felt as a Guns N' Roses. I loved November Rain is my favorite song, which inspired, actually, I'm not going to take, it's on my left shoulder blade, but it inspired my first tattoo, which is just the boy writing in a book on Use Your Illusion 1. Okay. Eventually I'll get the 2 at some point. But whatever. But I'm saying, like, that. So even GNR inspired my first tattoo. So it's just been, I don't know. It's like not even like I felt like I've gone out of my way either. Where there are people who have their obsessions and go out of their way to have collectibles. Like my girlfriend's kind of obsessed with Dave Matthews, and I don't know. She's not terrible. I mean, you see all my GNR posters on this side, all her Dave Matthews posters from that side. Okay. But. Yeah, it's very few things I've gone out of my way to collect, and GNR seems to be that. And then with this podcast, it's just been another unique way of collecting stories that aren't told anywhere else.
Yeah. But do you have any memorabilia that you're like your favorite or you're most proud of?
I think only like right now, it might be this poster. Okay. I didn't go to this show, Hawaii. I went to the other one. I don't know how well you can see those right now.
I can't tell what it says, but yeah.
Well, I'll show you.
Okay.
The one on the left, I mean, if you want to look it up, it's the Guns N' Roses lithograph poster from New York City, Madison Square Garden. It's the Duff one. Okay. There's a Duff Axl and a Slash one that were made after like the Gangs of New York. That's what it was supposed to look like. And so I was at that show, and that's when Pink came out. So I thought that was, that to me, that's like was my favorite poster. I've never had a poster look that nice. I'm like a college dorm poster, and I'm like, this is good material. This is great. But anyway, this one, I haven't been to Hawaii. It's a hula girl, skeleton hula girl. But the same artist who did that one, Arian Bueller, did the Gangs of New York one. He's done a bunch for Guns N' Roses. He's done it for the Rolling Stones. He's done it for the Bob Marley's estate. He's done it. He's pretty well respected. He was actually Arian Bueller was nominated for a Grammy. It might have been last year. I don't know. It was the last Grammys or the Grammys before that for his work on the Guns N' Roses box set. So he did the Guns N' Roses box set. He was the artistic director. He also was the artistic director for the Shadow of Your Love music video, which was really lyric video, which is great. So during this pandemic, so this is new, the Hawaii one that I got, I'm like, and my girlfriend and I are trying to like put more stuff up in this apartment. And since I've been stuck here in Queens doing my podcast from here, and people have been doing more Zoom and more Skype, I'm like, I need to redo my background. Since this is going to be my studio, I guess you see that everywhere on the news, and I keep hoping like you see those like those cats that go viral, like a cat licking his butthole on like a weather report where this guy's trying to read the weather.
Right.
So, by the way, I'm stuck in here with 3 cats, so I'm like, I got to, spruce it up a little bit. And I felt bad. I'm like thinking about all the people who can't work right now. I'm lucky that I could do my radio job from home. I'm like, Arian, there's no tours going on. This guy is. I don't know if he's making money. I'm like, you know what? It would be really cool if I reached out to him and see if he would sell me one of his stash. Because I did. Because the last concert I went to before the pandemic happened was last October. I went down to Austin, Texas for the first time for Austin City Limits.
Okay.
And of course, GNR played.
Yeah.
But I think the last band I officially saw was Mumford & Sons. And Lars Ulrich came out, which was kind of cool.
Yeah.
But I didn't buy the lithograph for GNR there. I bought a T-shirt, but I didn't want to carry the lithograph around in a festival. And I go online to buy it now. I'm like, okay, since I was there, maybe I can buy it now. They're all marked up. They're like $50 when you buy them. They're like 100, 200. I don't know. Capitalism, whatever. Just help out your favorite GNR fan. Like sell it at market price.
Yeah.
So I'm like, you know what? I don't want to do that. If I'm going to spend a lot of money, let me get it from Arian. He did me a favor because he doesn't often sell his own stash. He had a few of those and I'm like, that's really cool. I'm like, would you mind autographing it? So he autographed it, in the bottom right, and it's 4 of 5.
Oh wow!
So that's pretty cool. And the only one, the other memorabilia, which I don't know, maybe you could tell me your opinion on this. Maybe I'm stupid for doing this, but I have an autographed Guns N' Roses shirt from Slash and Duff. They're on there. It's from, I was wearing a Guns N' Roses shirt when I went to go see Velvet Revolver in New Jersey. And if anyone's ever been to the Starland Ballroom in New Jersey, it's like not surrounded by anything. It's like in the middle of Bumblefuck. And we got there early, my friends and I, because I wanted to be, I was against the railing, the stage. That's how I wanted to be. Then we just see some people running behind the building, I guess. Like, why are these people running there? This was like 2004, I think, or 2002, maybe one of those early 2000s. So it was like, you don't think it's like anything crazy. But Slash and Duff are signing autographs for people back there. And two things I'll never forget. Somebody like shoved like a white guitar in Slash's face, asking him to autograph it. And he's like, get the fuck out of here. It's like, obviously that guy's he just has a guitar on him. He's just there obviously to get Slash's autograph to sell it. So fuck him. And right before my autograph with Duff, some guy's like, can you sign my hand? He's like, why would you want me to sign your hand? And I said, because we're all close proximity. I'm like, you don't want to know. And made Duff laugh, obviously jerking off that was my jerk off joke.
Yeah.
I made him laugh. So Slash signed by his head. It was like the cross. So Slash signed by his skull face, and then I corrected Duff. I don't know why, because Duff doesn't look as blonde as he does on the cross. I'm like, sign right here. It's like, no, that's Steven. I'm like, no, isn't it here? He's like, no, I know which one is me, dude. I'm like, I'm an idiot. I'm sorry. So those are autographed, but over time it's just so faded. And I just like, am I ever going to sell it? I did have it up on my wall for a while, but even if you look at it on my wall framed, it just looks like a framed Guns N' Roses shirt. It's not like it's the Sharpie is just faded. Yeah. So I'm like, right now, I'm like, do I put that in the laundry? Maybe start wearing it again. I don't know. So, I mean, that is probably my favorite, but I didn't want to admit that I'm thinking about washing it. Just because it's so faded. I want to wear it again. I want to wear the shirt, but it's the autographs. They're autographs, but they're faded, and I'm never going to sell them.
Well, I mean, if it's something you're keeping, maybe just get someone who's real artistic and have them just draw over the top of it with a silver Sharpie or something.
Then it's worthless. Then I'm a fraud. I can't be a fraud.
Hey, it's originally there,
Yeah, it is true. I'll think about it. I'll mull it over.
Or no, I was going to ask you real quick. I kind of thought of it while you mentioned Shadow of Your Love. Were you surprised that didn't take off a little more when they released it? I mean, I know it's a song from like 30 years ago, but I just kind of thought it's a new single from a band that hasn't had a single in over 10 years. I just kind of thought it might have a little more steam than it had.
As far as radio play and all that fun stuff?
Yeah.
I think it's just because it wasn't marketed properly, because I think it was being shown as an old song. And even though it's a great song, and I've heard different versions of that, and the one that's released, whether it was reworked or not is something, conspiracy theorists can work their magic on that. But it's my favorite version of the song. I remember when it first came out, I watched the video several times in a row. I listened to it several times. I haven't done that with the song in a long time. But I just don't think unless GNR comes back, and I mean Axl, Slash, and Duff. It doesn't have to be all five if they don't want the Appetite Five. But unless they do some sort of press and be like, Guns N' Roses is back, and it starts going, and behind it, and it's like, wow, they are really back. I think that's part of it's going to be whatever they put out. It's going to be slightly hurt by that. They're that good and that talented that obviously they can have the fourth best selling tour of all time by doing zero to no press. I mean, Slash and Duff do, but usually for their own projects. It really wasn't certainly to sell any GNR tickets. Yeah. But I just think that's it. I think because it's like okay, this is just it's an old Guns N' Roses song. It's a really good song, but it's hard to get excited about something that's old. Yeah, I think that's part of it. If it's a new song, that can be scary. But Axl went through that with Chinese Democracy because it's like you want it to debut high and you don't want your legacy dented. But I think there was every opportunity for the GNR legacy to be truly dented by Chinese Democracy, and it wasn't. It's was done well. It did well. It was successful. You even read from the harshest critics, it's still overwhelmingly it's majority positive. But and again, the Axl did nothing there, so I don't think that's anything's going to change. But I think just that's part of it. I think that's why you see celebrities everywhere now on fucking TikTok, and they have to constantly be in your face. And yeah, you can just release stuff and be successful, which they've done. But that's my opinion why it wasn't, because it's a quick hard rocking song.
Yeah.
If they came back with I don't know, like a November Rain style that this is new Slash, this is new Slash with Axl, like that'd be different.
Yeah. Well, I mean, speaking of that, they've of course mentioned Slash and Duff in interviews that's happening or gonna happen. Like, what are your thoughts as far as your personal thoughts on what you would want it to sound like? Do you hope it's more like Appetite, or more like The Illusions, or more like Chinese Democracy?
I hope it's like The Illusions, because I think that's like the nice middle ground. Because there are songs that on The Illusions that could fit on Appetite,
right?
And they're Chinese. I like it. That sounds like such a weird sentence. I like Chinese. It took me, though, 3 times I remember to listen to it completely to fully get it, because it was just so different. I remember the first time I heard If the World, which is what I would learned as like Axl's take on a James Bond song. And it starts out with these falsetto guitars, and it's just, or even the first time I heard Better, I'm like, what is this high pitched? Like, what is this? And it just took a lot of peeling away the layers of just like the negativity, the surrounding it, the hype, and that this is a different band, even though it is with Axl, and then just enjoy it for the music. And then after that, I'm like, whoa, like There Was a Time, Prostitute, like if there are those level of songs on a new record. So that's what I want. I just want like a combination of all of it. I want to hear the evolution. I want to hear, The Shadow of Your Love, very early stuff, raw, powerful, in your face. But I want to see where it can go. And if you look at Slash's solo work with Miles and Duff's work, I mean, Duff has expanded a little bit with like country, I guess. But Axl pushes it. And that's what I've loved about it since the beginning. He pushed November Rain. He pushed to get those backup singers, Tracy and Roberta, on Use Your Illusion. He pushes for their greatness. Otherwise, would they be seen as the same way if they didn't have a November Rain and Estranged to their catalog? If they were just Appetite and they just kept trying to recreate Appetite. Appetite's great. The whole record, I want some of that sound, but they're too good to have one sound on that record. Even Chinese doesn't have one sound. Right. None of those records do. So that's what I would like to hear on an album, which I do believe that they're working on. It'll come out, as Axl says, you'll see it. I don't know if soon is the word. And I couldn't tell you. I have to imagine it would be some of his stuff that needs to be reworked, like during the Chinese era, that's being reworked on, which I don't know if people like or don't like. I don't mind it because it's still starting with an idea, like an Axl idea, and putting and then Slash's or Duff's idea on it.
Yeah.
So it still becomes something new. I like Van Halen's A Different Kind of Truth, and that's kind of was that same way. And then hopefully from there it's a jumping off point where they all start from a clean slate. But the big thing is just getting something out. I couldn't believe that the big release was the vinyl of Greatest Hits. I don't even own the original. Like, why? I have all those songs.
Yeah. I think that's the only Guns N' Roses official release I never bought was that Greatest Hits.
And if you recall, and I had forgotten about it, that there were lawsuits over it. They tried to stop the release of it. They didn't like the packaging. They didn't like the track list, all of that. So I don't know. I don't know how you are when you interview people. I mean, there's part of it where you want to get inside your head to be a better interviewer. But there's sometimes I'm like, I'm afraid. It's exhausting to try to get inside that head of like, you're a band that doesn't put out much music. Like, and you're making it. Like you're making music. It's not like, okay, if you say, you know what, we're done, we're retired. Okay. That sucks, but okay. But you know that they're doing stuff. And then you see Axl Rose show up on the Looney Tunes cartoon doing a new song. So it's like you could still do it.
Yeah.
You could still do it. So it's definitely been an interesting podcast to do surrounding this band. It's not just talking music. It's just it leads everywhere because this band is everywhere. But
yeah.
I love it. I'm everywhere. So that's why I guess they are my favorite band. So it kind of just fits my personality.
Well, something I was actually talking with one of my friends the other day about is, I know you remember like after, Slash and Duff left back in the mid 90s, in the, the following years leading up to Chinese Democracy, you'd always hear people say things like, if they had stayed together and kept making music, they would have been like one of the biggest bands of all time. I'm like, well, they already were. And you saw in 2016 when they got back together, they're filling up stadiums just like they used to. I'm like, do you really think if they had stayed together, they'd have been any bigger than they are right this moment?
It reminds me, maybe the quote you're thinking of is when VH1 used to have those behind the musics, and they were doing the Guns N' Roses behind the music, and Ozzy said if they stayed together, they would have been the next Rolling Stones.
Okay, yeah.
And GNR, I mean, they're not the Stones, but they're right there. I think the only thing that really separates them was a couple things, obviously. I mean, the Stones came first. They had to pave the way. Without the Stones, there are no Guns N' Roses. So, I mean, there's obviously that. But they have a bigger catalog. And I look at a band like Metallica, who never really went away. I mean, there are years between albums. But, would Guns N' Roses have put out a Saint Anger, that or Lulu, that they can't somehow live down? Or even when Metallica puts out a good record like Death Magnetic or Hardwired to Self-Destruct, that there are fans that are still not satisfied that they still have to do it. But I'm like, this band is still making music. Metallica is like doing everything right. They're putting out an old show every Monday. Like they're doing it great. They're doing a great job. But if GNR, could they? I don't know. Maybe because I think GNR has been and is more controversial than Metallica. Maybe they wouldn't have survived. Maybe because sometimes people bring up One in a Million or Used to Love Her or things that are controversial. Charles Manson. Would they have had a similar path as Metallica? Maybe they needed to go away for a while. Maybe the Chinese Democracy era needed to happen. It happened. It introduced me to Buckethead. I love Buckethead. So maybe this is just, I hate using a cliche, but this is like the way it was meant to be, I guess. It sucks for a lot of reasons, not just for Guns N' Roses, that everything got put on halt for a while. It's amazing that they were continuing this tour. They're continuing this band that seemed to be, or at least the Axl Slash match was never going to happen, that they were continuing. But it leaves you to speculate and hope that they're doing stuff at home to catch up to everything that Metallica has been doing.
Right.
I know it's amazing. It's certainly amazing, but all things considered, that's why I try not to complain as much as some other fans do. And everyone has their right. I mean, at the end of the day, it's just a band, and we're lucky just to have this music to enjoy. Just enjoy like the music that we have from them, and you just can't get too upset about it, like when stuff is going to come out. Like you just kind of, it can be frustrating, but just kind of enjoy the ride of it all. I think that's just so important to do. That's what I've had to do. Otherwise, you're just going to get frustrated. Yeah. Just be that the fact that if you think of a few years ago, obviously not in this lifetime, was called that for a certain reason. It was never going to happen. It seemed like Axl hated Slash. It seemed that way, and Slash didn't want to be asked Guns N' Roses questions anymore in interviews, and they were together. So I'm not going to let my complaints go too far, because this is just so much further than I ever thought. And I told you when I became a Guns N' Roses fan was 2000, or my first time seeing them was with Buckethead, or when I became a fan, they were already broken up. So I'm like, they've already accomplished the impossible.
Yeah.
But I still believe though that the new music will happen. I just don't know when. I just don't know when. Right. I wish I did.
Well, and as far as live shows go, last Fall, we got lucky and they brought back Locomotive and Dead
Yeah.
Horse. Are there any other like deep cuts like that you would personally love to see live? That
Sure.
they haven't played since the early days.
And since I've stopped complaining about the set list too, because like some people do that as well. Like, yeah, they're going to open with It's So Easy, they're going to close with Paradise City, certain things, but they've switched out enough. I think that's really great that they paid tribute to Chris Cornell and Glenn Campbell. I know Stop with the Covers. I know The Seeker is a great song. I don't need to hear that again because there are plenty of other songs I want to hear. I want to hear Pretty Tied Up. Yeah. I think that would be phenomenal. I don't know if there are other ones that I don't want to say it that like he can't do, because even when you hear Dave Grohl sing Monkey Wrench, that part of the song where he's singing for like 40 seconds straight, he breaks it up. So you got to find your own way to do it. But I mean, I would love to hear Garden of Eden. I think, and I said this actually to Alice Cooper. He's probably was my biggest guest that I was lucky to get. I want to see Guns N' Roses on stage with Alice Cooper doing The Garden.
Yeah.
How that hasn't happened is a crime against rock and roll. Like, and he's down for it. I mean, knock on wood or whatever. Alice is in good health, but he's older. Make it happen. Yeah. So I think, but tops is probably Bad Obsession, Pretty Tied Up, and The Garden with Alice. Probably my top. Oh, and then see, there's so much. I've never heard. They've played this, but I haven't heard Prostitute live.
Okay.
I haven't heard There Was a Time live yet.
Yeah.
I would love to hear a lot of Chinese, honestly. Shackler's Revenge. But then I'm torn because I want to hear Buckethead do those songs. It would be weird. I feel like I'd be cheating. It's weird. I feel like I would be cheating with Slash. So even one of those songs are played live. I think it's amazing that they both acknowledge between Velvet Revolver and Chinese Democracy the eras of when they were, apart. It's still weird. It's weird to hear Slither not by Scott. It's weird to hear Chinese played by Slash.
Yeah.
But like I said before, they're together. I think this is all cool considering how much hate there seemed to be, that they were like the band that would never get back together. Like it was maybe in Van Halen happened.
Yeah.
That did happen. I guess now without Michael Anthony. But still, Zeppelin maybe.
Pink Floyd, I think, is the only other one that large that.
Yeah, and Pink and Black Sabbath tried, but Bill Ward wasn't involved. So I mean, a lot of bands have come close, I guess. But yeah, but I'm not going to complain too much because it's like seeing mom and dad get back together again.
Right. Yeah, There Was a Time was my favorite song from Chinese Democracy, and I always wish they would have rotated it in there on that tour. And I saw them like 3 times on the Not in This Lifetime tour, and I don't think they played it as far as I know.
I couldn't tell you when they played. I just know that they have.
Oh, they have.
At times. I don't know. I mean, I don't think during the Not in This Lifetime tour.
That's what I meant during the.
I think that might have been one of the songs that GNR fans are crazy that have been heard on Soundcheck. That was the first time a Slither was heard. Yeah. I think actually a friend of the show, or listener who became a friend of the show. He's from Amsterdam, and he went to whatever that show was that they debuted Slither, and he was recording video outside the arena while they were practicing it, and like that kind of like went semi-viral because I gave him like admin permission on my Facebook to shoot the video, and he shared it there. So I think it has been practiced. Same thing with it. You see Hard School, perhaps like that new song. That leaked song. So I mean, this like again, I think I said before, this band has music. A lot of it is leaked out. So there's stuff, and fans want it desperately. So I don't know. Maybe I don't know if that's good or bad for me, because if you can't listen to GNR, at least we could talk about it and listen to it. Listen to conversations about it.
Yeah. Well, I know I've heard you mention. Well, you mentioned Dave Matthews earlier, but I've heard you mention a few times like you're forced to watch a live show or something here or there. But like outside of having to listen to Dave Matthews, what is some other music you've listened to besides GNR, Metallica, Green Day?
What do you mean, just in general?
Yeah, just some of your love.
Well, I make a joke because I mean, obviously, you talk about what you know, and I mean, my girlfriend and I we bonded over the Beatles, so the Beatles are one of my favorites. But her Guns N' Roses is Dave Matthews. I mean, she doesn't dislike Guns N' Roses. Her first show was when we went down to Austin, and she enjoyed it. She enjoyed herself. We were going to go again a few weeks ago. The Smashing Pumpkins were going to open. I was really looking forward to that. I haven't seen them yet, but other bands, love the Doors. I'm actually a big fan of Coheed and Cambria. I think they're great. I want to be able to find like it's a problem like finding like new stuff that really gets me, like what grabs me rather. I mean, maybe the last quote new band that did that was Hailstorm, but they've been around for a long time. They're great, but yeah, it's a lot of classic stuff for me. I'm stuck. I'm stuck in in the 80s or my childhood, or alternative rock from the 90s, or grunge era. Love Soundgarden, Temple of the Dog, Nirvana. As far as like 80s stuff, I mean, there's a lot of 80s metal you love, like Priest and Motley Crue. I love I think Nikki Sixx was my third radio interview ever. It was right before 6 a.m. came out.
Okay.
It was, so that was like early on. I'm like, I wish I had tape of that. But yeah, just a lot of just rock driven. Well, I have to say though, if you want to go a little off the beaten path, I'm a big Lady Gaga fan.
Okay.
Although I'm not. Her new record hasn't grabbed me. That's like the first record of hers that I'm like, I don't know. But because I've been to her. I've seen her in concert. That was was a couple years ago? I don't know. Yeah, I'm like, let me go see Lady Gaga in concert. I want to see her. I would love to see her do a rock record. I thought what she did with Metallica, even though the Grammys fucked it up by cutting off James's mic at the beginning, Moth in the Flames. I thought that sounded amazing.
Yeah.
See if Metallica is going to do that, don't do a record with Lou Reed, rest in peace. Do one with Lady. That's what I say. Do one with Lady Gaga. I think that would sound really awesome.
Yeah, her music translates really well because anytime you've heard like Hellstorm and that Leo from Frog Leak Studios like cover Lady Gaga's music, it translates really well to metal.
It does.
Yeah.
It does. And I respect. One of the acts I saw when I went down to Austin was Billie Eilish. I think I respect her. I mean, she does. I thought at first she's just a whisper singer, but no, she can sing. She writes her own music. It's like with her brother. I mean, how much she's been doing this? She's young now, and she's been doing it since she was even younger. So, like, how much more can you ask for a non-processed, star? Right. She's done it on her own. So I completely. So that's what initially attracted me, I guess, for lack of a better word, to Lady Gaga. I love that attitude of just the talent's real and you just do your thing. And that's what I loved about Guns N' Roses. That's what I love about Axl and Slash. They're just doing their thing. Yeah. So that's usually like who I look, I don't want to say look up to, but entertains me, or I feel good supporting, kind of thing. But yeah, probably, other than GNR, it's like the Doors, like I said, it's like classic stuff that I'm into. Even classical. I even like my Mozart and Beethoven. I will say.
Well, you mentioned Smashing Pumpkins opening for GNR, and the first time I saw GNR was on the Illusion Tour in '92, and Smashing Pumpkins opened the show, and it was before they had blown up at all, and they got booed off the stage. Like, he literally, like Billy Corgan just said, "Fuck you," and threw down his guitar, and they walked off the stage in less than 15 minutes.
Oh, wow. And
then it was a good 3 hours until GNR took the stage after that.
Jesus. Wow. Yeah, I hadn't seen them. And my girlfriend being from Chicago, where they're from, she hadn't seen them either. So we were both really looking forward to it. But obviously, there are people who have suffered a lot worse during this time. Yeah. Us getting our concert canceled or postponed or whatever it is. I'm keeping my ticket. They've already rescheduled it for next year.
Okay.
Which I just don't know. I mean, I guess you have to reschedule these things just to have some sort of plan in place. But until there's like some sort of vaccine or something going on, It's frustrating. It's definitely frustrating. That's why I'm sure, I don't know about you, but doing a podcast that you're able to do from home and you're able to communicate with people from around the world, it helps. It certainly helps during these times.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned that being able to do not only that, but your job from home as well. Like outside of that, what have you been doing to spend your time on a personal level?
Well, like I said, my job from home, which is audio editing, remote logging into a computer, doing certain, radio program stuff. I also have a secondary real job. You ever call your credit card company or your cable company and you hear that recording that says, this phone call may be monitored for quality assurance?
Yeah.
I work for a company that does that, not that monitors.
Okay.
So I've done it for airlines or trash companies or cable companies that I've listened to. My company is supposed to be the expert. I've actually done that. I may have mentioned that early on. That's the job that I've had that has supplemented me my entire radio career, because we're not all Howard Stern. We're not, and industry. It's been nice. It's like my little escape from radio reality a little bit. So it does take up my time, but other than that, I'm finally, getting my girlfriend to actually watch movies. She watched the first two Back to the Futures for the first time. And then when she waited, I'm like, they're going to these movies don't stay there forever. Now Back to the Future 3 is not on Netflix anymore. So.
Right.
But yeah, just fucking watching. It's like everyone else is watching Netflix. We have gone away, social distancing and wearing masks, and usually just for like a day trip. We travel to the border of where like New York and New Jersey meet Pennsylvania, like along the Delaware River a few weeks ago. I think later on this month, we're going to like Lake Champlain upstate. And I can take my job anywhere. So but for the most part, I'm stuck here. Just thinking about Guns N' Roses all the freaking time, checking my social media, and and booking guests when I can. I haven't gone crazy with booking guests during the quarantine, just because it's so, I don't know, it's weird. Everyone's dealing with their own shit, so I don't want to. Some people are really bored and want to do interviews, and there are other people that are so focused and just trying to get through this time. So it's I take them as they come. So I've been very lucky. I kind of get to do at least one interview episode a week. So that's been a lot of my time. And then I mentioned earlier the 3 cats. I've been, since I'm allergic to cats, I now have to get allergy injections every week.
Oh wow.
Which is awesome. The Zyrtec wasn't enough. The air purifiers weren't enough. It's also my fault because I like to hug them and sleep with them. But yeah, so now, because I can't go anywhere, and there were times I'm like, I think I have COVID again. I think I definitely had the flu or something back in January, and I never get sick, so I don't know what I had. Yeah. I'll get tested eventually. But there were times I'm like, I can't breathe in here. I'm suffocating and I have to go outside. And I had no idea that I was that allergic to cats. But when you're stuck in here and they shed all the time, but the shots are working. So I get out at least once a week to get my shots.
All right, man. Well, I won't hold you too much longer. I appreciate you taking the time with me today.
Yeah, no problem. I appreciate you. I hope I was interesting. I hope I was entertaining.
Absolutely.
To some degree. I appreciate you reaching out. Podcasting is definitely it's a unique world. I thought, I'm wrong now, so I'll preface it with that. I really thought for podcasting was for people who couldn't make it in radio. Yeah. And while that certainly can very well be true, there are many talented people out there, such as yourself, putting out a good product. And I think talent who do interviews appreciate it more, because if you're a podcast reaching out, chances are you're going to do a better interview than you would being maybe on the radio with somebody for 7 minutes or 10 minutes or something like that. So this is really given a good platform for people to really express themselves in a lot of different ways. Yes, there's so many of them. I know it's so hard. That's why I respect people like you when you have all your shit together. Because it's hard. I don't know. Are you a one man? You're not a one man band.
No, I got a co-host, Jason, but he's taking 3 weeks off, so I'm doing these this week myself. But
that's all right. Fuck him. I'm just kidding. So, but it's just solo. It's just I'm just doing, since my co-host, still current friend, left. It's just been me, but it's just given me a whole new respect for it, and just how to communicate with people. Even though I've been communicating with people my entire career, even in both jobs. My other job, the quality assurance job, is making sure people communicate properly.
Right.
To sell the cable, all that stuff. So this is just a different avenue. So I definitely I respect it. And for those who want to reach out to me and talk to me and have me as their guest, it also makes me feel good. Makes me feel like I'm still doing something right. So thank you for having me on.
There you go, Brando, the host of Appetite for Distortion. A huge thank you to him for taking some time out there to talk to me about his podcast, and of course a ton of different Guns N' Roses topics. If you haven't listened to our podcast before, Guns N' Roses is my favorite band, so this kind of seemed like a no-brainer to finally get him on here. We've had both the host of Metal Up Your Podcast on here before.
Right.
Talking about Metallica, so I figured it's high time that I get to do it.
Exactly.
Oh.
So it is. I think next we should aim for the Night Demon Iron Maiden dudes.
Oh, that's right. They do Talking Metal, or no, was it Talking Maiden?
Talking Maiden, and now it's the Night Demon Heavy Metal Podcast.
Yeah.
So it's like, which I still need to listen to.
Same here.
So maybe that's next. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of podcasts we listen to, but some of them are like Josta or Trunk, where it's harder. I mean, we've had Trunk on here for like 10 minutes, but
but other than that, they don't care. I don't blame them.
But it's cool, if you're not a diehard Guns N' Roses fan, you don't have to kind of mention up front with any of these podcasts. If you're just kind of a fan, he delves into all kinds of stuff. Like his guests, he doesn't just focus directly on Guns N' Roses. It's whatever they've got going on.
Right.
So it's very well done, and it's not, he's very professional about it. So hopefully one of these days he'll get Duff or Slash or, hopefully Axl, if that ever happens. But.
And that's how you should do it. That really is. It's like,
that's what we've always tried to do.
Yeah. It's like, I don't need to hear about 1987.
Yeah.
We've all been over it. It's like every time, and there's no way I would ever diss on Eddie Trunk. He is like, he's all of us podcasters, it's kind of what we aspire to be.
Yeah. In a way,
or just have the job he does. But it's like every time he has Marty Friedman on, Marty Friedman has to shut him down. It's like, okay, that was 30 years ago. And so.
And I don't like, we'll just talk about it since we're talking about Eddie Trunk. I don't like how he, like something I know Brando does, and we've always tried to do, is we focus on whatever they've got going on, and we, talk about some other stuff. But Eddie Trunk's always like, we'll get to like that. Like, we'll get to the new stuff like later on, but first we're going to talk about what you did in 1981. I'm like, well, that's cool to hear about, especially if I haven't heard about it before, but like,
right.
Let them talk about their new shit if they want to.
Yeah, exactly.
But I guess he still does, so it's not really that big of a deal. But.
Yeah. And it's like, what do I know? He's made a career out of it.
Right.
He has like 3 houses. I don't have shit.
We're just doing this for fun.
Yeah, we just do it for fun. But I mean, I don't. It's like if I had Marty Friedman on, I could think of a million things to ask him that wouldn't have anything to do with Megadeth.
That's right.
And in the course of that, he would probably bring up Megadeth shit anyways.
Yeah.
So that's kind of my take on it. So I appreciate, this whole, I don't need to, we focus on what they're doing now.
Yeah. Well, I guess real quick before we shut this down, just speaking of Guns N' Roses, I know we've talked about this kind of stuff before, but what's your favorite Guns N' Roses song?
Yesterday's.
Okay, that's what I was thinking it was.
Oh yeah, I mean,
which I love
that's
that
always
because
been, and there's so many of them. Do not get me wrong, but that's the one that's always it really just kind of got me in the gut ever since I heard it.
Yeah,
so,
and I love that fact because if you ask 100 people, 99 of them probably aren't going to say Yesterday's. You might get 1 or 2, but and I mean I freaking love the song. It's great.
Oh man, it's so good.
Yeah, and the cool thing is that they brought it back out. Like the year before last.
Exactly.
And they were slowly bringing out some of the older songs.
But yeah, it's no doubt it's that one.
Yeah.
Every time.
Mine is Night Train. and will always be Night Train at number one.
Right.
There's a lot of 1Bs and 1Cs, you know. You're pretty tied up, or you're Mr. Brownstone or Rocket Queen or whatever. But thanks again to Brando for doing that. That was some great stuff. If this is your first time listening, we've had Dizzy Reed on here. That's the closest thing to, or that close, the only actual Guns N' Roses member we've had on here. But we've had on guys from Kiss, Seven Dust, Shinedown, Deep Purple.
And hey, if you're
I can say Deep Purple now.
Right. And if you're into Guns N' Roses, if you're into Duff, we've had Shooter Jennings on, who produced Duff's solo record.
That's a great point.
Right.
I just listened to that again the other day.
So good.
Yeah, it's just a great album.
Yes, it is.
So that's another thing. If you're a Guns N' Roses fan, you didn't know about Duff's most recent album, Tenderness.
Then fuck you.
Yeah. Produced by Shooter Jennings, and it's pretty, I wouldn't say it's entirely country, but it's pretty much country. And it's
great.
It's just a great album. It's a great album to chill out to or whatever. So check that out if you have not. I mean, Duff, I believe, is the most versatile member of Guns N' Roses, because now he's done everything from punk albums to, you know, your obviously Guns N' Roses hard rock albums to now country.
Yeah.
And also check out Neurotic Outsiders if you never have. It is the greatest side project from any member of Guns N' Roses besides the first Slash the Snake Pit album.
Right.
Or Pawn Shop Guitars, maybe. I should have brought that up to him. What's the best side project? Because now, I mean, there's like a fucking long ass list.
There's so many
when you look at everybody in that band.
Right.
But anyway, all those guys from, if you like stuff heavy, Seven Dust, Crowbar, Superjoint, Black Dahlia Murder, Avatar, Megadeth, Death Angel, Testament. If you like the 80s rock, like I said, Def Leppard. We've also had on Tesla, Great White, Warrant, Firehouse, Lillian Axe, Bullet Boys, LA Guns, Trickster.
On and on.
Yeah. And a plethora of other things. I've said plethora twice in one episode.
Fuck yeah.
Hell yeah. All right, so check everything out on Spotify, iTunes, Google Music, all that stuff. Subscribe to us on YouTube at The Thunder Underground. Get on our website, thethunderunderground.com. You can listen directly there. You can find all our socials, so like us, follow us. Anything you see us post, if you like it or share it, that greatly helps us out, and that's a free way to help promote us. We would greatly appreciate it. And yeah, I think that covers it. Once again, a huge thank you to Brando from Appetite for Distortion, Hella Hot Sauce, DEB Concerts, Sunset Tattoo, and Med Farm. And until next time.
Thunder Underground, y'all.